The repair bay on orbital station Helios 7 was never quiet. Machines hummed, pipes groaned. Somewhere in the distance, cargo ships docked and undocked with heavy thuds that shook the metal walls. But Park liked it here. The noise made sense to him. It was honest noise, not like the chatter in the main halls, where aliens from 100 worlds talked and lied and smiled with too many teeth. Was a simple man, he fixed things. That was his job and he was good at it. When a merchant's translator broke, fixed it. When the delegation's heating system failed, fixed it. When the station's water recycler started making strange sounds, fixed that too. He never asked for praise. He never complained about the long hours. He just worked. He was 34 years old, with short black hair that was starting to show gray at the edges. His hands were rough from years of labor, and his face carried the kind of calm that made other people feel at ease. Humans were still new to the galaxy. They had only joined the Galactic Union 20 years ago, and most alien species still looked at them like they were children playing in an adult's world. Did not mind. He had learned long ago that it was better to be underestimated than to be feared. On his workbench sat a leather case, old and worn, the color of dark coffee. Inside were tools. Not station-issued tools, but something far more precious. Wrenches, pliers, screwdrivers, all of them handmade from earth steel. His grandfather had crafted them 60 years ago in a small village that no longer existed. They had survived fire, war, and the long journey across the stars. They were the only thing had left of the old man. He picked up a small wrench and turned it in his fingers. The handle was smooth from decades of use. He could almost feel his grandfather's hands in the grooves. The door to the repair bay slid open with a hiss. Did not look up. He knew the sound of station security boots, the soft steps of traders, the heavy thud of laborers, but these footsteps were different. Light, arrogant, the kind of walk that said, "I own everything I see." Finally raised his eyes. A young stood in the doorway. They were a proud species, tall and wolf-like, with silver fur and golden eyes. They walked on two legs but moved like predators. This one was young, maybe the equivalent of 19 human years. His fur was perfectly groomed and he wore expensive clothes made from shimmer silk. Behind him stood two older guards, their faces blank and professional. The young one's name had heard of him. He was the nephew of Elder, the head of a powerful merchant clan, had arrived on the station 3 days ago, and already he had made enemies. He insulted the consul's food. He mocked a human cargo worker's accent. He demanded the best quarters on the station and complained when they were not good enough. Walked into the repair bay like he owned it. His golden eyes scanned the room with obvious boredom until they landed on his workbench, on the leather case. "What is that?" asked. His voice was high and sharp. Kept his face calm. "My tools." Walked closer. He picked up the leather case without asking and opened it. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of the handmade tools inside. "These are primitive, earth-made." "Yes." "They look old," turned a wrench in his clawed fingers. "Why do you keep such ancient things? The station provides modern tools." "They were my grandfather's." Laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Sentimental, how very human. He closed the case and tucked it under his arm. "I think I will take these. They will make an interesting display in my quarters, a reminder of how far humans still have to go." The two guards shifted uncomfortably. One of them, an older with a scar across his muzzle, opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but he closed it again. No one questioned, not if they valued their position. Stood very still. His hands rested on the workbench, palms down. His face showed nothing. No anger, no fear, no surprise. He simply watched with calm, steady eyes. Waited. He clearly expected something. A protest, a plea, maybe even a clumsy attempt at violence that his guards could easily stop. Humans were emotional creatures. Everyone knew that. They shouted and cried and made scenes. But did nothing. The silence stretched. It grew heavy, like a weight pressing down on the room. The humming machines seemed quieter. The distant thuds of docking ships faded away. There was only the silence and steady gaze. Smile faltered for just a moment. Something flickered in his golden eyes. It might have been confusion. It might have been the first tiny seed of unease. But he buried it quickly, lifting his chin with practiced arrogance. Nothing to say, human. No begging, no threats. He laughed again, but it sounded forced this time. Perhaps your species is even more pathetic than I thought. Did not answer, he simply watched. Turned and walked out of the repair bay, the leather case tucked under his arm. His guards followed. The one glanced back with something strange in his eyes. It was not pity. It was something closer to warning, or maybe fear. The door slid shut behind them. Stood alone in his repair bay. The machines hummed. The pipes groaned. Everything was exactly as it had been before, except now his workbench was empty where the leather case had been. He looked at that empty space for a long time. His face remained calm. His breathing remained steady. But somewhere deep in his chest, something very old and very cold began to wake up. An hour later found him still standing there. Was the station's medic, a small woman with kind eyes and hair she kept tied back in a practical bun. She and had been friends since they both arrived on Helios 3 years ago. She knew him better than anyone. I heard what happened, she said softly. She stood beside him and looked at the empty space on his workbench. The whole station is talking about it, is showing off your tools like they are trophies. Nodded slowly. You should report him. The station has laws. Theft is theft, even for a diplomat's nephew. It would not matter, said. His voice was quiet but steady. His uncle would pay a fine, would keep the tools, and he would learn nothing. Then what are you going to do? Finally turned to look at her. His eyes were calm but saw something in them that made her breath catch in her throat. She had seen tired. She had seen him sad. She had even seen him angry once during a bar fight that ended before it really started. But she had never seen this. This was something else entirely. He will learn, said simply. He walked to a storage cabinet and pulled out a set of standard station-issued tools. They were functional but impersonal, mass-produced, soulless. He laid them on his workbench and began to work on a broken heating unit, his movements calm and precise. Watched him for a long moment. She wanted to say something comforting. She wanted to tell him that everything would be okay, that they would find a way to get his grandfather's tools back. But the words died in her throat. Because she realized, with a chill that ran down her spine, that was not upset. He was waiting. 3 days passed on orbital station Helios 7, and the story of the stolen tools spread like fire through dry grass. Every species on the station heard about it. They clicked their mandibles and whispered in dark corners. The laborers shook their massive heads in disapproval. Even the quiet traders, who rarely involved themselves in station drama, watched with their many eyes whenever he passed. Loved the attention. He displayed the leather case in his quarters, mounted on a special shelf where all his visitors could see it. He told the story again and again, laughing each time. The human just stood there, he would say, his golden eyes bright with cruel joy. Like a scared animal, he did not even try to stop me. These lesser species are so weak. His uncle, Elder, said nothing about the theft. Was an old, his silver fur streaked with white, his eyes carrying the weight of many years. He had built his merchant clan through careful deals and smart choices. He did not approve of his nephew's behavior, but was his sister's only son. Family was family. Still watched the humans on the station more carefully after that day. He noticed that they did not react the way he expected. They did not file complaints. They did not demand meetings. They did not even seem angry. They just continued their work, quiet and calm, with strange little smiles that made uncomfortable. Was not calm. He was a young cargo handler, 23 years old, with broad shoulders and a temper that got him in trouble more often than not. When he heard about the stolen tools, he stormed into his repair bay with fire in his eyes. "You have to do something," said. He paced back and forth, his hands clenched into fists. "That arrogant dog stole from you, in front of everyone. If you let him get away with this, every alien on this station will think humans are easy targets." Continued working on a broken navigation panel. His hands moved with steady precision. "Lower your voice." "Lower my voice?" He took your grandfather's tools, the ones you always talk about, the ones you never let anyone else touch, slammed his palm on the workbench. "Fight him, challenge him, do something." "I am doing something." What are you doing? Because from where I stand, you are just sitting here fixing machines like nothing happened. Looked up. His eyes met, and the younger man fell silent. There was something in that gaze that made words feel small and useless. It was like looking into deep water and realizing you could not see the bottom. "He will learn," said. The same words he had said too, the same quiet certainty. Opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. He stood there for a long moment, then shook his head and walked away. At the door, he paused and looked back. "I hope you know what you are doing, brother." The door closed behind him. That same evening, a consul named requested a private meeting with Elder. There were insect-like beings, tall and thin, with shiny black shells and compound eyes that saw everything. Consul was old, even by standards. He had lived for over 200 years and had seen many species rise and fall. Received him in his quarters, offering the traditional drink of respect. Accepted it but did not drink. His mandibles clicked nervously. "I come with a warning," said, "about the human." His ears flicked with mild interest. "The engineer, what about him?" "Your nephew took something from him, something of great personal value." "I am aware, a set of primitive tools has shown them to half the station." His voice carried a hint of embarrassment. "My nephew is young, he will mature." "That is not my concern," leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering. "My concern is the human's reaction, or rather his lack of one." He did nothing. He stood there like a prey animal. "Yes, that is what worries me." Frowned. "I do not understand. Surely his cowardice proves that humans are as weak as everyone says." Was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, almost a whisper. "I have studied humans for many years, Elder. They fascinate me. Do you know how they survived on their home world? Earth is a dangerous place, predators everywhere, harsh climates, limited resources, yet humans became the dominant species. Do you know how?" Shook his head. "Patience." His mandibles clicked. "They are pursuit predators. They do not attack with speed and power like they follow, they watch, they wait. Their prey runs and the humans follow. The prey tires and the humans keep walking. Hours, days, however long it takes, they never stop, they never give up. And when the prey finally collapses from exhaustion, the humans are there." Felt a chill run through his fur. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that a human who screams and fights is not dangerous. A human who goes silent is terrifying." Stood up, his tall body unfolding like a closing door. "Your nephew stole from a human and the human said nothing. The human did nothing. And now the human is waiting." "Waiting for what?" Moved toward the door. "That is the question that should keep you awake at night, Elder." After left, sat alone in his quarters for a long time. He told himself that there was being dramatic. Humans were newcomers to the galaxy. They had no real power. They were laborers, engineers, medics, small roles, unimportant roles. What could one quiet human possibly do? But that night locked his door, and he did not sleep well. Meanwhile, in the station's medical bay was watching with growing concern. He had stopped eating regular meals. He barely slept. When she visited his quarters late at night, she found him sitting in complete darkness, his eyes open, his body perfectly still. He did not move for hours. She said softly, sitting beside him, "You are scaring me." He turned to look at her. In the darkness, his eyes seemed to catch light that was not there. "I am sorry, I do not mean to worry you." What are you doing, sitting here in the dark like this? Remembering. Remembering what? Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was speaking from very far away. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the occupation, about what they did to our village, about the fires that burned for 3 days. He paused. He taught me that anger is a fire. It burns bright, but it burns fast. It leaves you empty. What did he say to do instead? His lips curved into a small smile. It was not a warm smile. He said to be like water. Water is patient. Water finds every crack, every weakness. Water can wear down mountains if it has enough time. He looked at his hands. I have time. I have all the time in the world. Wanted to reach out and touch him, to pull him back from whatever dark place he had gone to. But something stopped her. A deep instinct that whispered she should be very careful right now. What are you going to do? She asked. Did not answer. He simply turned back to the darkness and continued his silent vigil. Across the station was celebrating another night of excess. He did not notice that his personal accounts had started showing strange errors. He did not notice that certain people had begun avoiding him. He did not notice the way the humans on the station looked at him now, with flat, empty eyes that followed his every move. He was young and arrogant and certain of his own importance. He had taken from a human, and the human had done nothing. In his mind, this proved everything he believed about humans. He had no idea that he had already been marked. The hunt had begun, and did not even know he was prey. The first strange thing happened on the 4th day after the theft. Woke up to find that his personal accounts had been frozen. Not deleted, not stolen, just frozen. When he contacted the station's financial office, they apologized endlessly and blamed a computer error. The error was fixed within hours, but the damage was done. Had tried to buy expensive wine for a dinner party, and his payment had been rejected in front of everyone. The embarrassment burned like acid. The second strange thing happened the next day. The heating system in his quarters failed. Woke up shivering, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. He called for repairs, and a maintenance team arrived within the hour. They found nothing wrong with the system. It simply was not working. They replaced some parts, ran some tests, and left. That night, the heating failed again. The third strange thing was smaller but somehow more disturbing. His favorite food, a spiced meat dish from his home world, was suddenly unavailable in the station's commissary. They had run out, the servers said. A supply error. It would be weeks before more arrived. When demanded to know how this was possible, no one had answers. Day after day, small things went wrong. His communications to his home world were delayed by hours, sometimes days. His door lock malfunctioned, trapping him in his quarters for half an afternoon. The lights in his bathroom flickered constantly. His personal tablet crashed and lost important files. None of these things could be traced to any cause. None of them could be blamed on any person. They were just accidents, bad luck, coincidences that piled up like stones on a grave. Began to chain. The arrogant smile faded from his face. He stopped showing off the stolen tools. He stopped telling the story of the weak human who did nothing. He started looking over his shoulder when he walked through the station. He started jumping at small sounds. The other young in the delegation noticed. They whispered behind his back. He stole from a human, they said, and now he is cursed. It was a joke at first. Then it stopped being funny. Then it became something people genuinely believed. Elder watched his nephew's decline with growing unease. He remembered Consul's warning about patient humans and endless pursuit. He told himself it was nonsense. He told himself that humans had no power on the station. But the coincidences kept happening and kept getting worse. One night found his nephew sitting alone in the dark, staring at nothing. Said gently, "What is wrong with you? You look unwell." "He is watching me, uncle." "Who is watching you?" "The human, the engineer." His voice was thin and shaky. I see him everywhere, in the corridors, in the commissary, in the observation deck. He never speaks to me, he never even looks at me directly, but he is always there, just at the edge of my vision, watching. Felt his fur prickle with unease. You are imagining things. The human is just going about his work. No, shook his head. It is not just him. It is all of them, all the humans on this station. They watch me, uncle. Their eyes follow me wherever I go, and they never blink, they never speak, they just watch. Had no response to this. He left his nephew's quarters feeling more disturbed than he wanted to admit. The next morning made a decision. He would go to the human. He would speak to him directly. He would offer compensation for the tools, perhaps even a formal apology. Whatever was happening needed to stop, and if that meant swallowing his pride, so be it. He found Park in the repair bay, exactly where everyone said he would be. The human was working on a complex piece of machinery, his hands moving with calm precision. He did not look up when entered. Human said, "I wish to speak with you." "Then speak." Bristled at the casual tone but forced himself to remain diplomatic. "My nephew took something from you. I understand it had personal value. I am prepared to offer compensation." Compensation, repeated the word without emotion. "Yes, name your price. Credits, goods, services, whatever you want." Finally looked up. His eyes met, and the old felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. Not the sharp fear of immediate danger, but the slow, creeping fear of the unknown. Like walking through a dark forest and knowing something was following you. "I do not want your credits," said. "I do not want your goods. I do not want your services." "Then what do you want?" "I want your nephew to understand." "Understand what?" Set down his tools and stood up slowly. He was not a large man. He was not intimidating in any physical sense. But somehow, in that moment, he seemed to fill the entire room. "My grandfather was a farmer," said. "He lived in a small village on Earth. He had a wife, 3 children, and a small piece of land. He built those tools with his own hands. He used them to fix his tractor, his house, his neighbor's equipment. He was a simple man, a good man." Said nothing. He could not look away from his eyes. "When I was a child, they came. They wanted our land for a military base. They gave us 1 day to leave. My grandfather refused. He said his family had lived on that land for 6 generations. He would not abandon it." His voice remained calm, but something changed in the air. The humming machine seemed to grow quieter. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "They burned our village. They killed everyone who resisted. My grandfather survived only because my grandmother hid him in a well. He stayed in that well for 2 days, listening to his home burn above him, listening to his neighbors scream. When he finally came out, everything was gone. His wife, his children, his land, everything except those tools." His throat was dry. "I am sorry for your loss, but—" I was not finished. His voice cut through his words like a blade. "My grandfather gave me those tools on his deathbed. He told me they were more than metal. They were memory. They were survival. They were proof that no matter what the universe took from us, it could not take everything." Took a step closer too, then another. The old wanted to step back, but his legs would not move. "Your nephew took those tools like they were nothing, like my grandfather's suffering was nothing, like my family's history was nothing." His face remained calm, but his eyes burned with something ancient and cold. "I could have stopped him. I could have fought. I could have reported him to station security, but that would have taught him nothing." "What do you want him to learn?" whispered. "Fear." The word hung in the air like smoke. "Not fear of me. Fear of consequences. Fear of taking things that are not his. Fear that will stay with him for the rest of his life." Finally found his voice. "You are just one human. You have no power here. What can you possibly do?" Smiled. It was not a warm smile. "I do not need power, Elder. I need patience. And I have more patience than your nephew has courage." He picked up his tools and returned to his work. This conversation is over. Tell your nephew to return my grandfather's tools within 1 week. If he does, I will stop. Stop what? What have you been doing? Did not answer. He did not even look up. Stood there for a long moment, feeling like he had just been shown something terrible, something he did not fully understand. Then he turned and walked out of the repair bay on unsteady legs. Behind him, continued working in silence. The clock was ticking, and his week had already begun. The diplomatic dinner was supposed to be a celebration. The Galactic Union had just signed a new trade agreement with 3 major systems, and orbital station Helios 7 had been chosen as the site for the formal announcement. Representatives from a dozen species gathered in the station's grand hall, dressed in their finest clothes, ready to eat expensive food and make important connections. Elder had insisted that attend. It was important for the young to be seen at such events to learn the art of diplomacy and trade, but watched his nephew with worried eyes, had grown thin. His fur had lost its shine. He moved through the crowd like a ghost, jumping at every sudden sound, looking over his shoulder at every opportunity. It had been 6 days since conversation with the human engineer. 6 days of trying to convince to return the stolen tools, but refused. His pride would not allow it. Returning the tools would mean admitting weakness, admitting that a human had frightened him. So he kept them in his quarters, locked in a drawer, as if hiding them could make the nightmare stop. It did not make the nightmare stop. The dinner began well enough. Servants brought out course after course of delicious food. Musicians played soft melodies from the observation deck. Diplomats chatted and laughed and pretended to like each other. For a few hours, everything seemed normal. Then Admiral arrived. Was a decorated military officer from Earth's United Defense Force. He was in his 50s, with gray hair cut short and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He walked with the confident stride of a man who had seen war and survived. He was visiting Helios 7 on official business, inspecting the station's defensive capabilities, and he had been invited to the dinner as a courtesy. When entered the grand hall, something changed. The human crew members on the station seemed to stand a little. They nodded to him with deep respect. Even aliens who knew nothing about human military ranks could sense his importance. Made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging polite words. Then he spotted someone across the room, and his stone-carved face softened into a genuine smile. He said, walking over to the quiet engineer who stood in a corner, nursing a glass of water, "It has been too long, old friend." Smiled back. It was the first real smile anyone had seen on his face since the theft. "I did not know you were coming." Last-minute assignment. The brass wanted a senior officer to inspect the outer stations. Clasped shoulder. "You look tired. Everything okay?" "I have had some trouble recently." "What kind of trouble?" Glanced across the room. Followed his gaze to who was trying to hide behind a group of older diplomats. The young alien was clutching a familiar leather case under his arm, as if afraid to let it out of his sight. Smile faded, his eyes went cold. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yes." "Your grandfather's tools, the ones you carried through the uprising, the ones I saw you use to repair our shuttle when we were surrounded on 4. "The same." Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. "How long?" Understood the question perfectly. "Tonight." Nodded slowly. Then he did something that made every alien in the room uncomfortable. He looked at the other humans scattered around the hall, maybe 20 of them in total, including, and he made eye contact with each one. One by one, they stopped what they were doing. They set down their drinks. They stopped their conversations mid-sentence, and they turned to face. Then they fell silent. It happened so smoothly that it took a few moments for the alien guests to notice. But notice they did. Conversations faltered. Laughter died. The music played on, but it seemed hollow now, a cheerful sound in a room that had suddenly become very cold. 20 humans stood perfectly still, their eyes fixed on. They did not speak. They did not move. They did not blink. They simply watched. Consul was the first alien to understand what was happening. He had studied humans for 200 years. He knew their history. He knew their methods. And he knew, with terrible certainty, what this silence meant. He moved quickly to Elder's side. "You need to get your nephew out of here." Looked at the humans with confusion. What are they doing? Why are they staring at him? This is how they hunt. Hunt, they are not hunting. They are just standing there. Exactly. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. On Earth, humans hunted prey by following it for days without rest. They did not attack. They did not chase. They just followed, walking, watching, waiting. The prey would run and run until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then the humans would close in. His compound eyes glittered. "Your nephew is not being threatened, Elder. He is being worn down." Looked at the humans again, at their flat, expressionless faces, at their unblinking eyes, at their absolute, terrifying stillness. And finally, he understood. Understood, too. He had been watching the humans since they first went silent. At first, he thought it was coincidence. Then he thought it was his imagination. But now, seeing them all focused on him with that patient, predator focus, he felt something inside him break. He dropped his wine glass. It shattered on the floor. The sound echoed through the silent hall. Then he ran. He pushed through the crowd, knocking aside a trader and nearly trampling a servant. He fled through the grand hall's main doors, down the corridor, toward the elevators that would take him to his quarters. He did not look back. He could not look back. He knew somehow that if he looked back, he would see them following, walking, watching, never stopping. The other guests watched him go in stunned silence. Then, slowly, conversations resumed. But the mood was different now, heavier. Every alien in the room was looking at the humans with new eyes. Admiral had not moved during his flight. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his stone face revealing nothing. When the young was gone, he turned to. "You have 1 day left in your week," he said. "Will he return them?" "He will. And if he does not?" Looked at his old friend. His eyes were calm and ancient, holding depths that even could not fully see. "Then I will get them myself." Across the hall felt a shiver run down her spine. She had known for 3 years. She had seen him work, laugh, cry, and everything in between. But tonight, watching him stand among his silent human brothers and sisters, she realized she had never truly known him at all. None of them had. The dinner continued for another 2 hours, but no one enjoyed it. The alien guests ate their food and made their deals, but their eyes kept drifting to the humans. The humans who smiled politely and said all the right things, but who carried something behind their eyes. Something old, something patient, something that never forgot and never forgave. When the dinner ended, Elder went straight to his nephew's quarters. He found huddled in a corner, the leather case clutched to his chest like a drowning man clutching a piece of wood. "Give me the tools," said. "No. Listen to me, I know what I have seen tonight. Those humans are not what we thought they were. They are not weak. They are not cowardly. They are something far worse. They are patient." He knelt beside his nephew. "Give me the tools, let this be over." But shook his head. His pride even now would not let him surrender. I do not bow to lesser species." Closed his eyes in despair. He had done everything he could. The rest was in fate's hands. And fate, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor. The next day would be the 7th day, the last day of his deadline. And after that, the hunt would truly begin. The 7th day began in silence. Had not slept. He sat in the corner of his quarters, the leather case beside him, watching the door with wide, terrified eyes. Every sound made him jump. Every flicker of light made him gasp. He had pushed furniture against the door. He had turned off all communications. He had wrapped himself in blankets like a child hiding from monsters in the dark. But he could not hide from the truth that he had made a terrible mistake. The truth that he had taken something precious from a man who would never, ever let it go. Outside his quarters, the station went about its normal business. Cargo ships docked and departed. Traders made their deals. Tourists wandered the observation decks, taking pictures of distant stars. No one paid attention to the scared young hiding in his room. No one except the humans. They were everywhere now, not surrounding him, not threatening him, just present. Every corridor he looked at through his window had at least one human walking through it. Every camera feed he checked showed a human somewhere in the frame. They were not watching him directly. They were not doing anything unusual, but they were there, always there. A constant, patient reminder that he was not alone. By midday, his hands were shaking so badly that he could barely hold a glass of water. By evening, he had stopped trying to eat. By nightfall, he was hearing footsteps that were not there, seeing shadows that moved when he turned away. And then, at exactly midnight, there was a knock on his door. Froze, his heart pounded so hard that he could hear it in his ears. The knock came again, calm and steady. 3 simple taps. No urgency, no threat. Just a quiet announcement that someone was waiting. "Go away," whispered, his voice cracked. The voice on the other side was soft and patient. "Open the door." It was him, the human, the engineer, Park. Pressed himself against the wall as far from the door as possible. "No, I will not open it. You cannot make me open it. I am not going to hurt you." "Liar, you have been tormenting me for days. The problems with my accounts, my heating, my food. That was all you." There was a pause. Then his voice came again, still calm, still patient. "Those were just reminders, small things to show you that actions have consequences. I could have done much worse. I chose not to." "Why?" "Because I am not my enemies." Felt tears running down his fur. He did not understand. He did not understand any of this. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be emotional and easy to control. They were not supposed to be like this. "What do you want?" he asked. "Open the door, find out." His hands shook as he stood up. His legs felt like they were made of water. He moved the furniture away from the door, one piece at a time. When the path was clear, he stood there for a long moment, his hand on the control panel. Then he opened the door. Park stood in the corridor, alone and unarmed. He wore his work clothes, simple and practical. His face was calm. His eyes were steady. He did not look like a monster. He did not look like a threat. He looked like exactly what he was, a quiet man who fixed broken things. "May I come in?" asked. Stepped aside. He did not trust his voice. Walked into the quarters and looked around. His eyes found the leather case immediately. It sat on a table, closed and untouched. He did not reach for it. Instead, he turned to face. "My grandfather built those tools with his hands," he said. "He was a farmer in a small village on Earth. He had a family, a home, a life. Then they came and took it all away. Everything burned. Everyone died. He survived only because my grandmother hid him in a well where he stayed for 2 days, listening to his world end above him." Lowered his eyes. He could not look its face. When he finally came out, he had nothing left except those tools. They became his anchor, his connection to everything he had lost. He carried them across the stars when humans first left Earth. He passed them to me on his deathbed. They are the last piece of him I have. Stepped closer, backed up until he hit the wall. "You took them like they were nothing, like my grandfather's suffering was nothing, like my family's history was a joke." His voice remained soft, but each word hit like a hammer. "I could have reported you. I could have fought you. I could have made your life a living hell. And yes, I did cause you some trouble, but I held back. I always held back." "Why?" whispered. "Because I wanted you to understand something." Reached out and took the leather case from the table. He opened it slowly, checking each tool, running his fingers over the worn handles. His grandfather's hands had held these same tools. His grandfather's love had built them. And now they were back where they belonged. If I had wanted to hurt you, said, you would never have seen it coming. Humans are not like other species. We do not roar and charge. We do not make threats. We simply act. By the time you see us coming, it is already too late. He closed the case and looked at with something that might have been pity. But I am not my enemies. I am not the who burned my grandfather's village. I am not the warlords who thought they could take whatever they wanted. I have chosen to be different. I have chosen to be better. His legs gave out. He slid down the wall, sitting on the floor like a broken puppet. Tears streamed down his face. I am sorry, he whispered. I did not know, I did not understand. No, you did not. Look down at him without anger, without hate. But now you do, and that is enough. He walked toward the door, the leather case tucked under his arm. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. You will leave this station tomorrow. You will go home to your family, and you will remember this lesson for the rest of your life. You will never take from someone again without thinking about what that thing might mean to them. You will never assume that silence means weakness. You will never forget that the quiet ones are always the most dangerous. He stepped into the corridor. Goodbye, we will not meet again. The door closed behind him. Sat on the floor of his quarters for a long time, crying like a child. When Elder found him the next morning, the young was changed. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. The cruelty was gone from his voice. Something had broken inside him, and something new was growing in its place. They left the station that afternoon. The delegation departed in silence, their grand trade agreements overshadowed by what had happened. Did not look back as their ship pulled away. He could not bear to see Helios 7 again. In the years that followed, would tell the story of the human engineer to anyone who would listen. He would warn Young about the danger of arrogance, about the foolishness of underestimating quiet people, about the terrible patience of humans. And whenever someone asked him why he had changed so completely, he would say the same thing. I met a human who could have destroyed me, and he chose not to. That terrified me more than any violence ever could. Back on Helios 7, life returned to normal. Park went back to his repair bay, his grandfather's tools in their proper place on his workbench, brought him tea every evening, stopped by to share lunch. Admiral sent messages from his ship, checking in on his old friend. One evening sat within his repair bay watching him work. The machines hummed, the pipes groaned, everything was exactly as it should be. Was it worth it, she asked. All those days of planning, of waiting, of watching him fall apart. Set down his tools and looked at her. His face was calm, but his eyes held something warm now, something peaceful. He will never take from anyone again, he said. He will teach his children and to think before they act. One lesson, rippling forward through generations. He picked up a wrench and turned it in his hands, feeling the smoothness of the worn handle. And I did not have to become a monster to teach him that. Smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. Outside, the stars burned cold and eternal in the void. Cargo ships came and went. Aliens of 100 species walked the corridors of Helios 7, each with their own stories, their own struggles, their own lessons to learn. And somewhere, in a small repair bay in the quietest section of the station, a human engineer worked in peace. His grandfather's tools were home. And that was enough.